I was in middle school when Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, and it blew me away with its detailed open world. So detailed it was that I soon found that most of my time was spent completely ignoring the missions and just exploring the map, comparing different areas to the real-world places they were based on. And it wasn't long before I heard about Ratman. According to rumor, the Ratman is either a homeless man able to sprint with superhuman speed, or an actual half-rat hybrid creature, who if encountered, will either attack the player or sprint off into the darkness, shouting, "I am the Ratman." He was said to haunt the tracks of the city's large, dark subway system, stalking players who came down to explore. The rumors seemed to have taken off when screenshots were shared claiming to show the Ratman. Though the images are of extremely poor quality, this only seemed to fuel speculation. In the Easton service station, an orange liquid can be found staining the ground, which believers referred to as Ratman blood, and adding the lore that the station acts as his lair. I spent hours with friends in multiplayer, combing the vast tunnel networks under Liberty City looking for the Ratman. I remember excitedly hurrying to the location where someone claimed to have just missed him, and comparing so-called proof that we'd found. Other targets of our investigations included the Middle Park Whale and the ghosts in the abandoned hospital. We never found anything, though we sometimes thought we did. Yet, our hunts never felt like a waste of time. Despite having nothing tangible to show for our efforts, we were having a blast. But just what is it that seems so fascinating about these virtual myths and legends? TV Tropes refers to this concept as the urban legend of Zelda, the tendency for video games to develop rumors of hidden content that most players would never see. These legends usually concern creepy things, such as hidden areas or dangerous and out-of-place NPCs. Others, of a specific ritual a player must perform in order to get something to happen. Some claim to present evidence of dark secrets or conspiracies about a game's world or characters, especially games that are otherwise upbeat or marketed towards children. There seems to be particular interest in implications that a bright and cheerful world is actually just a facade, as evidenced by the abundance of rumors and creepypastas surrounding games like Pokemon and Animal Crossing. Some myths even assert that their game is actually haunted, and that you may be visited by real ghosts that have hidden themselves within the game, such as in the infamous story of Herobrine. For various reasons, some games just seem to have an ever-present, unnerving feeling lingering over them. When we feel that way about a game, like there's some unspecific sense of wrongness, we're inclined to look for something we can point to as the reason why, and internet speculators and storytellers will happily give their suggestions. And to be honest, we're happy to hear them. Sure, we know that most of these claims are lies. We know it's suspicious that every screenshot of the monster is a grainy picture of a TV screen. And we don't care, because it's just so much fun to talk about. So when someone makes up a story that claims to explain the dark secret of a game, or some hidden terror that's been just out of view all this time, we want to believe it. And it doesn't mean completely shutting your rational brain off. It's not like there's no precedent. The larger and more open-ended a game world is, the more obscure corners there are for developers to hide things in, and the more little details there will be to fuel player speculation. When you know there's a million little cracks for something to hide in, it becomes hard to convince yourself that something isn't hiding. And lately, developers seem to have been more than happy to indulge that desire. Our efforts in finding the Ratman were spurred on by the very real Easter eggs in the game, such as the Heart of Liberty, or the cliff with the dumped cars. Rockstar, along with many, many other developers, have placed hundreds of verified true creepy Easter eggs hidden within their games, some of which require a lot of effort to find, and can be much more involved than just an extra room or NPC. Remember, we live in a world with Infra's Tunnel B2 Easter egg, which requires the player to solve a puzzle they won't even know they're solving, as they deliberately ignore the obvious path to progression, culminating in a horror sequence unlike anything else in the game. Is something like the Ratman really that crazy? Older games seem to have a special tendency to attract such legends. I've spoken briefly before on how there seems to be some psychological connection between eeriness and nostalgia. Games tend to be strongly representative of the era in which they were released, holding not just memories of themselves, but of moments in time. It's a special kind of creepy to think that a game you have nostalgia for might have always had some horror within it, while you played right beside it, unaware for years. This is why some newer horror games attempt to play up their creep factor by presenting themselves with retro graphics and gameplay. Developer Chillizart are known for presenting many of their games with PS1-style graphics. This works not only by playing off of nostalgia for 90s horror games, but of nostalgia for the 90s in general. We live in an age of smartphones and constant internet access. It's hard for legends to live when you can easily just Google any claim you hear and get a definitive answer immediately. Older games, or ones that present as old, take you back to a time when myths were allowed to thrive, when suspension of disbelief was so much easier, and for all you knew, that schoolyard story you'd heard about the Lego Island ghost or whatever might be true. When you play these games now, it can almost feel like you're actually visiting the past itself. Only now, you're the only one there. And that nostalgic emptiness can make it feel like something is off. While nostalgia certainly helps to fuel these ideas, it's in no way a necessity. And with modern games being bigger and more detailed than ever before, there's still a massive presence of rumors popping up around newer games, spurred on by developers keen to tease. But there is another aspect of modern internet culture which presents a great hindrance to the cultivation of myths. Some more tech-savvy users have investigated rumored video game Easter eggs in pretty much the most conclusive manner possible, by actually looking through the game files themselves to see if anything matches up. Does Leatherface really appear at the Panopticon in San Andreas? Well, there's no texture for him, so I guess not. Then word spreads across the internet, which more or less kills the myth dead. This isn't to say data mining is by any means the end of gaming legends. You can't prove a negative after all, and data miners failing to find evidence to support a rumor within a game's files does technically still allow believers the hope that the necessary files just aren't so obviously named, or are otherwise hidden or inaccessible. Surprisingly, what I actually consider to be more disappointing are those times when a rumor is definitively proven to be true. Years ago, someone in your social circle might tell you about having encountered the ghost of Lockout or the San Andreas ghost cars, and you'd pretty much just have their word for it. These days, if something is found, there will undoubtedly be plenty of YouTube videos showing exactly how to access it, repeated and recorded by so many different people as to leave no doubt about its authenticity. But when you shine a light on a mystery, it loses all its appeal. After all, what is a cryptid besides a weird animal we haven't identified? What is an elephant, if not a giant monster? If scientists captured a Bigfoot tomorrow, it'd be big news for a little while, but then we'd give it a name and it'd be just another animal. In summary, video games are essentially widely shared experiences which can be revisited at any time. Try looking at it this way. Why do you think so many scary legends take place in the woods? Because many people can relate to the experience of being there at night, feeling watched but unable to see what's around them. Games can function in the same way, with the added convenience of being able to easily investigate them for yourself, or with your friends. You have to fly to the Pacific Northwest and spend the night in the woods to look for Bigfoot. You only have to hop on the computer to look for him in San Andreas. The indistinct sense of lonely eeriness that sometimes accompanies a game leads to a desire to pinpoint a source to what would otherwise be an irrational feeling, just as one might want a story they can think about for when they feel watched in the woods. People might be inclined to think they saw things that weren't really there, or just to make things up. For the same reason, others will readily listen to them, not because they've been presented with indisputable proof, but in fact, because the evidence is so flimsy. All the fun lies not in the answer, but in wondering whether or not it's true.